it's going to be worse for you to lie. Let's just break it and see if Dad can fix it.
Are they going to do what they actually said that they are going to do?
I mean, they're just exhausted with standing over their children because they don't want them to click the wrong thing. And I'm like, that's not a healthy way to use technology. Now, there was one time.
Just do something. Doing nothing is no longer an option.
All right, well, welcome to the SafetyNet podcast by ArkCybr. My name is Josh Lewis, and I am your producer. And with me is Sean Artizone, who is the founder and CEO of ArkCybr. He is also the hacker, genius, brains and heart of this podcast. And so today is going to be a different episode. It's going to be slightly different than some of the ones we've done before. One of the things we thought could be helpful is, how do you create a culture of trust in your home? So a culture of trust around how you use technology, how you train your kids to use technology. Like, there's going to be different things that we talk about. And so while this is going to not be so like tech specific necessarily, we think this is going to be helpful for a lot of you who are watching this. So, or at least we hope so. So Sean, let's talk through some of these things. So we're talking about creating a culture of trust in your home. What is trust? How does it play out when it, as regards to technology, your kids, that kind of thing?
Yeah, good question to start us off on this one, Josh. Trust. There's a lot of things. A lot of people have different thoughts in their head when you hear the word trust. And there's three things I think of. It's given, it's earned, and it's grown. It's one of those intangibles that when it's broken or misused or even improved and increased, there's that human element to it that's just powerful, that brings happiness and comfort, knowing that you can count on someone, or you can have some of those kind of assurances. And so I like to think of the given part of trust. Initially, when anything new comes into a person's life, they're going to either have to trust it or reject it, immediately. With one of those two choices. The initial trust to use something or to do something is given, but usually comes with a healthy bit of skepticism, and that keeps a lot of us from jumping off of or jumping into something too much. And so that given piece, initially, it has to be, there's a level that's given, and then over time, once that trust has been given, there's more of an earning, and it's not so much a reward type of earn as it is, or like a merit type of thing. But in a way, it is, and it can be. The more you prove through like a lifestyle of integrity, or a lifestyle of character, reliability, discipline, all types of things that show this person or this thing is more trustworthy because it has a pattern of positive outcome. And then the grown or the growth piece of trust, that just keeps expanding through the framework of the trust relationship. And so that growth and earn are kind of synonymous, but the growth can happen with or without the earn. The earn is from the trustee or truster. Yep. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I like to look at trust.
That's great. That's helpful. Yeah, because I mean, with trust, there's always two sides to it. There's the one who gives the trust, the one who receives the trust.
Yeah.
Full trust can't happen unless it is given. As if we think about kids and technology, like, I'm hopefully thinking about my daughter. As she gets older, I'm hoping I can trust her with more and more things. Her level of maturity will grow up. Hopefully I'm training her, those sorts of things.
Yeah. There's a great, and I may have talked about this on one of the other episodes already, but we have a rule, and it's a spoken, unwritten rule, but it's no punishment for breaking things. And initially, when I laid that out to the kids, I said, it's going to be worse for you to lie than it is
Yeah.
for you to break or damage something.
Yeah.
And I can always buy a new thing, fix the old thing, do some of those types of things, and I just want you to come talk to me. I just want you to come tell me you broke something, you damaged something. If you hide it, you're going to make it worse,
Right.
especially if it's something significant, and we find out later and we needed it or whatever. And so they initially, there was a healthy bit of skepticism. Is he really not going to freak out, or is mom not going to lose it if we come and show that we broke this dish or this toy or
Yeah.
this window or this blind or whatever? And so initially they had a healthy bit of skepticism, but they would bring the broken thing to us. Sometimes it was 3 or 4 days later. It wasn't immediately as we or as soon as we would like it to have been, but as they realized, hey, look, we broke it and we didn't really get in trouble, they were disappointed or upset or whatever, but it wasn't like we got in trouble. They fixed it like they said, like dad said he would, or mom said she would take it to dad and see if he could fix it, or they got a new one, or they just said, oh, we don't need it. And so the no punishment for breaking things rule was met, but as they learned and saw they could trust that word and trust that promise that we made, they began bringing things. Now we were trying to create a house of demolition. Look, let's just break it and see if dad can fix it.
Right.
Maybe that'd be a different story. That's kind of intentional.
Yes.
But we created an environment where they know if something breaks, stuff happens. Stuff isn't as important as our relationship and the closeness that we have, and that it's okay. Things are going to break. Things are going to get destroyed. Things are going to damage. Things are going to get dropped. Things can be replaced, or they can just be, so what? It broke and whatever. And so, that's just an example that kind of I have personally in my life of how this played out. Just one example. So
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I think the thing that's coming to mind as you are talking is you want to set expectations and you want to stick to what you say. And so if again, it's not just parents trusting kids, it's kids trusting parents. Are they going to do what they actually said that they are going to
yeah,
do? Right.
yeah.
So that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's like you said, it is. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And while I may be the truster on this side right now, even in this podcast relationship, right, you're going to have to trust that I'm going to bring something of
Right.
use, and I'm going to have to trust that you know how to do all the technology parts that I have no clue, and
Right.
that two-way thing. And as we grow, people are hopefully enjoying the show more and liking it, and we're having a
Yeah.
lot of fun doing it. So yeah, it's really good. The one thing I wanted to mention too was in the context of ArkCyber's mission to help eliminate harmful content. Right there is a focus on removing easy access to pornographic material, but we classify anything that is harmful
Mm.
to the user of that piece of technology as just harmful content. And so the goal is to give that environment where you can trust that your technology is has a lot of the risk reduced. And
Mm.
so you did mention pornography, but
Yeah.
there's just so many other kinds of harmful content out there that
Yes.
that even your kid, your daughter, she may stumble into that, and
Right.
the emotional psychological damage from pornography is is a real thing.
Yeah.
But if she also stumbles onto a hacker site, causes your home network to be compromised, and now your
Right.
financials and your personals and just whatever. So there's so many things that you have to kind of in this new era deal with more so than just pornography. So there's a lot.
Right. Yeah, that's very helpful. So, okay, we're talking about trust. What are ways that what kills trust? Maybe on the parent side, on the child side, like what are the things that kill trust?
One for sure is it's unintended use, and I think it's a pretty common term in workplace environments. And if you use a device in a workplace, unintended, they give you a laptop. They want you to use it for workplace business. They're not intending for you to take it and turn it into your gamer streaming, laptop or whatever. By the way, I don't do that. This is maybe you have to edit
Right.
that out, but yeah, they don't intend for you to turn their technology into something that you're using for personal. Now,
Yeah.
they may have a light policy on that where they don't mind, and some, personal use is tolerated.
Yeah.
But the unintended use of technology in a home, a parent hands a child a phone or a laptop or a tablet. The wife agrees to, bring high-speed internet. Husband, family, everybody agrees, bring high-speed internet, bring a smart TV, and do all these things. And the unintended use that can come along with that. We did not intend for you to use this in a way to introduce pornography to your family, or
Mm-hmm.
you have been using this to have a side relationship, in a marriage, and so deceit goes hand in hand with unintended use. You were given the device, that there was an intention of what the device is to be used for, and so deceit goes hand in hand with that, and unintended use is a serious way to break trust. And so those kind of go into how intentional the person is, right? If the person has been exposed to pornography, now that desire to go look at it again, to chase it down, to find more about it, more out about it, especially if they're young, can turn into repeated violations. Then maybe they got caught, maybe they brought it to the light immediately, whatever it was that happened. Now they're still going back, doing it again, but they're being deceptive. They're using the technology in a way that you didn't intend, and they continue to do it. They keep doing it. That'll kill trust from the parent to the child, from the husband to the wife to the husband, all the way around. That'll just be a destroyer because there should be a policy, whether it's, as a family, you can write it up. Workplaces create policies all the time for intentional use, and they outline the consequences for what happens if you misuse their technology. And so as a family, you can have either a verbal policy or a written policy, but those types of things will be quick to break the fabric of trust that has been established. Kind of going off of that, a micromanaging, or some terms I've heard, they call them, helicopter parents. You're not that you shouldn't be concerned or involved at all in
Yeah.
your in your child's life, for sure. I don't I don't think we had locks on our doors, and as a kid, because my parents, they had the right to come into my room at any time they wanted.
Oh, right.
Obviously, during appropriate times, right?
Yep.
Hey, I'm changing. Don't just come barging in. We
Right.
kind of have a similar thing, right? Nobody in our house is allowed to leave a bedroom or a bathroom in a state of undress. So you
Mm.
walk to the bathroom fully clothed, you leave the bathroom fully clothed. If you're in your room and the door is shut, it's because you're changing your clothes, but the rest of the time the doors are open. And there's that level of understanding that there's no real privacy unless there needs to be,
Mm.
for appropriate situations. And so some people can just turn that into kind of over the shoulder, and they're so afraid. And it's not unfounded why they're afraid. There's a lot of bad stuff in the world, a lot of harmful content out there. And so going too far with the control and too far with the lack of trust will kill trust in both directions. The child will
Mm.
learn that the parent just doesn't really care, doesn't tolerate or want them to have any kind of life. As of course, it'll turn it into a horrible. My parents are the worst.
Right.
And then the parent now is, I've met moms and dads at some of these trade shows who are, they're just exhausted with standing over their children while they're trying to do homeschool because they don't want them to click the wrong thing. And I'm like, that's not a healthy way to use technology. You should
Yeah.
not have to be so afraid that that you have to watch every little click. And the parent, that they just, not that they should just let it go. They just need to do something else, because that's not the answer.
Right.
I mean, maybe it works for a season, and maybe there is a point where you have to do it, right? But that micromanaging type of over the shoulder stuff, that it just, you'll just destroy the trust relationship there.
And I feel like even for the parent, that might breed unnecessary suspicion.
Yeah,
Like again, like you're saying, you've said it at least once where it's like you're not saying don't be involved.
yeah,
You are so for parents
yeah,
being involved, but
100%.
there are other ways of going about it,
Yeah,
and the micromanaging helicopter parenting situation just really isn't going to help
yeah,
foster trust at all. It really is just like, I can't get them off of my back. And
yeah.
will they even trust me with anything? Like, that doesn't breed an environment of trust at all. So I love how you said that.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of. I mean, we'll touch on this a little bit more, but when you taught your child to ride a bike, the first few steps, mom or dad was holding firmly to the handlebar and holding onto the seat. They didn't trust the child because they knew for sure the child didn't know what they were doing. So they offered the assistance
Yeah.
needed to help the
Yeah.
child stabilize. And so it's kind of the same thing with technology, right? You want to help them stabilize and use it the right way by having one hand on the one handlebar, one hand on the seat, a few steps together, and let them kind of feel how it works. That's fantastic. That's absolutely great. At some point, you have to let go. You have to let go of the
Yeah.
handlebar. Maybe you still hold the seat now. Let go of the seat. But each of those are steps in stages. You, as the parent, have discerned. Okay, they got the hang of the handlebars. I can let go of the handlebars. Okay, they're still not doing too good with the speed and the balancing. I'm still going to hold on to the seat. And maybe even at that point, they don't have any training wheels. They have one training wheel, whatever it is. You've put all those things in place, and you've even given them helmets, and you've given them elbow pads, and you've given them knee pads. All of those steps as a parent you've taken to allow them to use that piece of technology, that bicycle, safely. And yet here we are, we're handing keys to $60,000 Harley Davidsons to our 7-year-olds without them ever having rode a bike. There has to be that building up initially to give them the right way to use it. And they need to understand the safety protocols, and they need to understand the
Yeah.
dangers, and then they can understand the fun parts of the internet, like
Yeah.
getting to film a podcast for people to see all over the world. This is absolutely incredible. So there's so many amazing things that technology can do, and by not micromanaging it complete, like at some point, if you don't let go of the handlebar in the seat, that the kid's just going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not fun
Right.
for me. And you're going to be exhausted, because that's no way to train a child to use a bicycle. So yeah.
Yeah. That's so helpful. That's great. So I think you have, so we've got, uh, ways to kill trust. There's the deceit. There is not like unintended use.
Mhm.
There's the repeat violations, continual misuse. You said micromanaging, the
Mhm.
helicopter parenting. Are there any other ways that you could kill trust?
Yeah, one more thing is not following through. Kind of like a broken promises. I remember vividly when Alex passed away.
Mm.
We went down to South Florida, and I helped his mom sort out his room. It was, I don't like want to get too much into that piece, but while we were there cleaning out the room, she handed me a chess set that I had given him, and it was this really neat crystal glass chess set, and he absolutely loved it. Loved playing chess on it. His mom gave it to me, and I was just thrilled to like that he treasured that gift so much, and I brought it home. When I got it home, I had set it up in the basement on a coffee table just so that I could just go down there and sit there and just look at it. And I didn't really, I didn't really use it. I just set it up and just imagined playing a game with him. Well, one day, my youngest, AJ, was kind of playing a game down there. He's jumping around, and I told him, I said, "Be careful, AJ. Don't jump around this. The chess set is here." And he was like, "Oh yeah, okay." Well, I had just went back upstairs out of the basement and was in the living room, and it could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 10 minutes, I don't remember. It wasn't long, but it was long enough. And I heard this crash, and I went downstairs and I looked, and on the table, AJ had tripped, and like in his jumping, he was jumping and kind of landing on his backside, and then on the table, but not near the chess set and whatever. Well, he had tripped when he jumped, and he fell, and he landed right on top of the chess set with his backside. Mm-hmm. Busted the board, busted a bunch of the pieces. He was fine. He had no blood, no injuries to himself. But he looked at me and he was crying, like just terrified, because he knew how much that chess set had meant to me. And I was devastated. I was hurt. But I looked at him and I just said, "That's all right. Let's just get the box." So we put all of the pieces back into the box. I actually still have the box somewhere with all the broken pieces, but I put them all back in the box, and I gave him a hug, and I was like, "It's okay. It's okay." He was like, "But it was Alex's," and I was like, "I know, bud." And it was just a chess set. I was like, "I love you, and you're here. Alex is gone. This is a chess set, and I told you that I wouldn't ever, there'd be no consequences for breaking things, and I can't not keep that promise now, right, even in something so painful, so difficult, Yeah. But the truth is, he knew, like I had an opportunity to not follow through, to break that promise, and to break his trust, and it just wasn't worth it to have that shattered trust. And so, we hugged, and, I put the box away, and not following through will destroy the trust fabric.
Yeah.
So
I think even with your specific example, with how personal it was, how, honestly, like, I feel like of anything, like any parent listening to this, they might have been like, all right, yep, that makes sense. This will be the time he loses it. And for you to fight for keeping that trust, even in that, I would imagine, I can just imagine how emotional you were at that point. And to not let whatever emotions, like one of the things, like we've learned at church, right, is like act, don't react, right? That's a way you love people. And so you acted based off of what you had told AJ versus how you maybe felt at the time. And so I think that's very important for parents. Like, when you set something, make sure you keep following through, even when it hurts. Because that will time and time again prove your love, and that you really do want that trust to be facilitated. So that's really, really good example.
I don't know if you could tell, but even talking about it still hurts. In the devastation, like, it was a hard thing to see, and a hard thing to go through, but it wasn't worth losing, like the relationship with my son, who trusts me and loves me, and said, this was a huge opportunity to see that promise in a very hard, of course I was crushed, I was devastated.
Sure.
But his hug, and hearing him cry, knowing, like, Dad, I know you said, and all these things, it just was, I mean, man, it was a neat moment to have.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that's actually a good segue, because we talked about the different ways to kill trust. So let's talk about ways to build it. Maybe they're on both sides, but like, what are ways that you're thinking when it comes to technology, when it comes to how we are facilitating conversations in this relationship around technology, how do we build
Hmm.
trust?
Yeah. So one of the most simple ways, when I was in the Army, my platoon sergeant used to say this to me. He would say, "Set expectations and honor your word,"
Mm,
and don't, so you set expectations. There are no confused like, "Oh no, I didn't know. Sorry, sorry, troop. The expectation's been set," and and then if you gave a word that this is going to happen or this is going to do this, honor it, stick to it. Setting the expectations, everybody's on the same page. That's a super simple way to make sure that there's no misunderstandings. Make your expectations clear, and everybody just gets on board and abides by them. And when the expectations aren't met, there's a clear line. There's a clear, hey, remember we set the expectations. These are your chores. These are the intended use of technology, right? The intended use is homework. The intended use is the occasional games, maybe an hour or two a day. If they're older or whatever, and you've allowed them social media, the intended use is 1 to 2 hours and no posting about anything inappropriate or whatever. You set the expectations and then honor your word. If you said, when you get to this age, we're going to give you a piece of technology, stick to that. You're going to have to learn how to bring that technology in safely, deploy it safely, use it safely, train them to use it safely, rather than, well, no, you're just not ready. Now, I know I said I'd give it to you when you were 9 or 10. You're just not ready. That's going to just break their trust. You said this, you said that. And so it kind of reminds me, back to the thing we were talking about a few minutes ago about the motorcycle. You're not just going to come in and, all right, to your 5-year-old who's getting ready to learn how to ride a bike, hand them the keys to a brand new Harley. You're going to take the time to bring that in and show them how to use it. Now they see you using it safely. They see you understand the implications of misuse and unintended use, and you're training them. So they kind of look to you as the expert. They kind of look to you as, the one who knows how to do this thing and do it safely. And so by showing them the foundations and then building that foundation of the safe technology use, you give them the understanding to adopt for themselves. They see you doing it, they see how it works, and then they want to mimic that. Who hasn't seen the videos of a child pushing their little bubble mower while dad's out actually cutting the grass with the real mower? The children they love to copy their parents, and they love to do those same kind of things. I've seen children on fake toy cardboard box phones talking to nobody like they're having a conversation, just like mom and dad do. And so they will do the same behaviors with technology that we do, that they observe us doing. And so if you can kind of set the expectations of how it's to be used, honor the word, and then train them to do that, they will have that trust that you care for them. You have their best interest in mind. You understand what it is you're doing. Now, some kids, it seems like they're born with a super high tech savvy, and they're outpacing a lot of us nowadays, and it's hard to keep up with some of these whippersnappers. But yeah, trying to just having that ability to show them how to use it safely. So that's a really good way
that's
to build that
helpful.
trust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. So I think, yeah, going back to yes, setting those expectations, honoring your word, and I think by example
Mm.
is so important, because kids just have a very high hypocrisy meter. And so
Yeah.
if like if they see, the worst thing you could say is, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm.
Like that's like, kids are like, well, why should I,
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
No, that would be my attitude, right?
Yep.
And so to lead by example in these things,
Yeah.
whether it's, hey, dad has these things on my devices, I make sure I have boundaries as well, and even talk about the boundaries,
Yeah.
different times, um, just to show that the kids are not an exclusion.
Yeah.
Everybody has to have guardrails.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so like whether it's like my wife is mostly off of social media just because she's like, it's not actually super helpful for me.
Mm.
I don't like the comparison, like all those different things. And that's just like a small thing, but it has helped her so much.
Yeah.
And it's like I have monitoring stuff on my stuff. So it's like to let Honora Ray know that as she gets older, I think it helps kind of set that as a, you
Yeah.
know what, we all have this. It
Yeah.
just looks slightly different depending on what we
Yep.
need and who we are.
That's one of the biggest questions I get at the conferences as well is, well, my husband, he's a police officer and he needs a little bit more freedom on his device. Is your technology or are the things that you help us do, can I have a customized for him and the kids get the, I'm like, absolutely. That's
Yep.
absolutely the intent is, the 8 and 9-year-olds need a little bit more restrictions than mom and dad do, but mom and dad should have some kind of protection because
Yeah,
maybe mom and dad aren't, going to pornography sites, but mom and
right.
dad are susceptible to hackers and scammers and literally every other type of, criminal aspect that's just sitting out on the internet. So everybody needs something, but yeah, having that, having it on our devices and saying, look, follow me as I have, a platform on my phone that my wife has the keys to. And, so
Yep.
when it went to telling the kids, hey, we're putting this on your phones because you're getting phones,
Right.
it was like, look, it's on mine. It's no, the whole family's getting it. So
It's normal.
it wasn't a hard thing. And so they trusted that, like, oh, well, dad's using it. So, now there was one time where my 19-year-old Chase, he came to me holding his tablet in his hand, and the tablet was in a bricked state, and he was like, it won't boot up, and you could just see his head was hung down, and I was like, okay, tell me what happened. And so this fell under the, if you break something, just tell me,
Yeah.
rule. And there, so he brought it to me and showed it to me, and he goes, well, I discovered, and it's called a race condition essentially, but he created a human machine race condition. And so what he was doing was taking the tablet and he would swipe up from the bottom and swipe away the parental control software, and with his finger as fast as he could hit the uninstall button. He was able to, by doing that, uninstall the parental control app that I had put in place. Once that was gone, he looked at the tablet and was like, what are all these extra other files for that I don't know why they're here? So he actually went in and deleted the system files and folders. And when he did that, he bricked the device, brought it to me, and try as I may, I could not recover the OS. And I was like, well, you basically have an $8 paperweight right now. And so we laughed about it. And I said, okay, great job following in the hacker footsteps of dad. I love it. But
Right.
also,
Why?
new
Yeah.
policy, any software I put on the device is not to be removed, tampered with, disabled, or destroyed,
Yep.
like the smoke detector.
Right.
Yeah. And so it just was like, the, lost the point.
Well, I think that
Do as I do.
that goes
Yeah.
right. Do as you do, but also like that goes back to. I actually think that's helpful to some parents because whether it's as your kids get older or honestly even as you discover new behaviors,
Mm,
maybe you find out you don't have all the rules clearly articulated.
yeah.
Maybe you need to come up with new guidelines and new boundaries.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, you have to do that now, but make sure you set the expectations and then honor your word, just like you
Yeah.
said before.
I've had a few policies result in actions I took in the military.
Right,
Just,
right,
company commanders briefing tomorrow, new policy, da 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 da.
right.
Yeah, we're not going to do this anymore because we
Thanks,
say
Sean.
so. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So not,
that's great.
I actually said it to my shame. It's not. I wasn't proud
Sure,
of those moments. It's just stuff that you
totally.
didn't know, and because the policy didn't exist, you
Yep.
just did it. Now there's a policy. So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really all these things are to help train, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
hopefully train behaviors.
Yeah.
Whether or not they stick over time and whatever, that's not really up to you. What
Yeah.
you're responsible for is when they're with you, how do you train them? So
Yeah.
yeah, are there any other thoughts or things around building trust?
Yeah, that what you just said, that builds a consistency, right? And so as each person is trusting the other more, and that trust is being more further earned and further grown, that consistency just brings in more and more of it. And so that building by just sticking to that that pattern, having that pattern of integrity, that lifestyle of integrity, that character. And as you're doing that, there's nothing wrong with throwing in some rewards for having followed and lived within that framework well.
Yeah.
So over deliver. You said,
Mhm.
hey, I was going to take you, for this or that because you've been using your technology well. You've been living within the framework that we talked about. You have no unintended use. Let's go. Here's a reward. Here's something that you didn't even get promised. It's above and beyond because you want to encourage more behavior like that. My 14-year-old has the freedom to have a laptop, a tablet, and a phone in his room because he's proven that he will live well within the boundaries. He doesn't test the boundaries. He doesn't try to get as close to the line as he can. He knows that the capability for me to monitor and see all the things that his technology is doing and what he's doing on his technology exists.
Yeah.
And early on, there may have been a curiosity, but he quenched it well and stayed and functions within that framework. And because of it, when he was like, "Can I get a gaming laptop?" Yes. Can I play on the PlayStation? Yes. He self-regulates his game time. Now, occasionally, he's like me. A new game will come out, and I'll sit on it until I'll get the game like for Christmas, and then the family won't see me until February 1st because I've played the game for a month and just got it, beat it, and then that's it. I'm good for 11 more months, and I don't need to play video games and whatever. And he's kind of developed the same kind of thing. He's into NBA 2K and Spider-Man and just a bunch of other cool games, and he plays them, but he self-regulates. He plays them for as long as he's allowed, and then he turns it off and he goes and does something else. You go outside and play basketball, or he'll take the dog out for a walk. He accomplishes his chores. The reward system, over delivering didn't start off that way because then that could have turned into a manipulation tactic, right?
Sure.
And so me manipulating him manipulating me, and so that's why we never told him, hey, we're going to do these extra things. We just did them when we realized, man, he's really thriving within this. He's really performing well. My other child needed a little more closer supervision, a little more observation, a little more things, and he chose the not reward system. He chose the push up and sit up system, which was still beneficial to him, but
Sure.
he's pretty tough. But the reward system can't be used initially because then it's kind of like a manipulation thing. It's like, oh well, if you do
Mm,
this, I'll give you a thing. I'll give you an ice cream, and now
mm,
it's just not a healthy.
that's a
For
fine
me.
line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's really good. Are there other like some final thoughts on building trust that it's like, hey, these might be good things to think through as you're we're assuming if people are listening to at this point they are wanting to build
yeah,
trust. So
right.
yeah, anything specific.
Yeah, I just go back to the teaching your kid to ride a bike, right?
Yeah.
Initially, you held tight, close, and you had your hands on the handlebar and the seat. And as you went down the road, farther down the road, you picked up some speed with them. You were controlling the speed. They were just their feet were kind of flopping on the pedals, but you were controlling the speed. And as that grew, you let go of the handlebar, you still held onto the seat. Maybe you put your hand on their back and kind of, let them stabilize themselves, but you're still providing the speed. At some point, they become the power generating the motion, and you're now an observer. And so it's literally the same thing with technology. You want to become an observer. You don't want them to just ride out to the middle of the road. You don't want them to fly down the hill or just whatever. And so you're still going to observe until, that time comes when they go off on their own, and, you're no longer, kind of doing those types of things. And so that's really what trust is. It's a path, and it's a process, and it will grow. They'll trust the technology, like on the bike. They're going to trust that,
Right.
hey, I'm able to balance myself, and I'm able to pedal and use the brakes, and now I'm able to talk and turn my head, and I'm able to, oh, look, Ma, no hands. I'm riding the bike with no hands. I'm just balancing with my lower body. And so they'll have a very similar experience with technology if you teach them how to use it properly and trust them like you did when you sat them on the bike. At first, you didn't trust them right away. You were the catalyst.
Well, thank you. I think those ways are helpful just to think through and even just process, like, how am I doing in some of those areas as a parent, and so we'll have these in the show notes for people so you can go back and look at them if they're helpful. So this was a great episode. And I know it was a little different than normal, but we're talking about technology here. We're talking about relationships and how the family uses it and all those things. So we hope it was beneficial. Before we go, I would love to just remind you guys that we are a podcast of ArkCybr. So ArkCybr is a really a it's multiple things, but mainly what Sean does is he has this free consultation service for families to help make sure that they have a safer internet experience. So if you need help, go to arkcyber.com. You can click on, like, up here at this free consultation button. It'll take you to this form. You fill it out. It goes to Sean and the team, and they'll get a time with you to figure out, what do you need? What are your family's needs? What do you have? And if there's any recommendations that are needed. Also, ArkCyber is a crowdfunded organization. And so if you go to the Pay It Forward page, arkcyber.com/PIF, that will take you to our Pay It Forward page, and you're able to give any amount, a one-time amount, a monthly amount, and it will give you access to a couple different things. But when you pay it forward, it will support this podcast and creating content for people like you, but also it helps make sure that Sean and the team are able to have these free consultations and to keep them free for families. So if you would please go to arkcyber.com/PIF and consider paying it forward. Please follow us at ArkCyber, basically all the places. And as always, because this is going to be on YouTube and everywhere, please like and subscribe, and maybe share this with somebody that you think could be beneficial for. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope that this conversation will help not only build trust in your home, but lead towards a safer internet experience for your family.
Just do something. Doing nothing is no longer an option.